In 1818, the South American nation of Chile gained its independence from the Spanish Empire and soon emerged as a mostly stable, albeit authoritarian, republic, soon growing its army and navy to consolidate against lingering Spanish threats and expanding its territory to the north in the War of the Pacific 1879 to 1883, where it defeated an alliance of Peru and Bolivia. The Chilean armed forces became a powerful entity vital for Chile's expansion and strength, and soon gravitated in the late 19th century towards adopting the military traditions of another powerful authoritarian nation in Europe, Prussia, which had led the effort to form Germany as a unified nation-state in 1871 under Prussian King Wilhelm I, who became German Emperor, with Otto von Bismarck the driving force. Prussia, often described not as a nation with a military but a military with a nation, had come to dominate Central European affairs at this time, and Prussian military tradition was known far and wide for its machismo and battle prowess. Chile had previously considered fully adopting the French military model, with some Napoleonic military officials emigrating to South America after the Battle of Waterloo and finding a way to continue their careers in the Chilean military, and by the 1830s their knowledge had spread into the nascent Chilean army. In practice, this meant that, for example, the Chilean army organised artillery separate from infantry and cavalry, that the higher Chilean military leadership was decentralized in peace but centralized in war, and a focus on the French column formation in line tactics. In addition to these more practical considerations, Chilean soldiers were also dressed in French-style military uniforms, with Chile even hiring a French military training mission in 1858, and it was this army that had defeated Peru and Bolivia in the War of the Pacific. By the late 19th century, though, the French style had become stagnant, and Chilean leaders realized a change was needed. President Domingo Santa Maria thus initiated a series of military reforms, and Prussia, who had won significant victories in recent times against Denmark, Austria, and France, stood out to Chilean military commanders as the right choice. In 1881, Chile contacted its delegation in Berlin, requesting that they find Prussian officers to help train the army, with more wide-sweeping reforms starting in 1885. And then a year later, they appointed Captain Emil Kerner, a veteran of the Franco-Prussian War and War Academy graduate, along with 36 other Prussian officers to come and train the army, particularly the officer corps, who were themselves experienced veterans of the War of the Pacific, but had little experience in the classroom, where Prussian influence dominated new officer cadets. During Chile's Civil War in 1891, Kerner supported the congressional forces in rebellion against President Balmaceda, as he saw their desired system of government based on the British parliamentary system as being more favourable to facilitating the Prussianization of the military. In less than 6 months, Kerner trained an army of 10,000 officers and troops, which ultimately defeated the regular army, with Kerner being appointed Chief of the General Staff and later Division General. Chile wanted a modern professional army. Kerner moulded one, and when he retired in 1910, he left behind the best equipped land fighting force and the best educated officer corps in Latin America. Chile's army utilized German weapons, general staff organization, and military doctrine, as well as, of course, adopting Prussian-style uniforms, parades, marching style, and military music. These traditions live on to this day in the ceremonial parades put on by the Chileans, and for all intents and purposes, this army on parade today is the Kaiser's old Imperial German army, goose-stepping through the streets of Santiago. The parade's music includes the famous Prussia's Glory, written after the victory over the French in 1871, and alongside Chilean parades is also sometimes played by British and Swedish marching bands too. Also used is the Prussian Inspection March from 1820, also still used in Germany, and King Frederick's March, composed in the 1860s and associated with Prussian military prowess and expansionism under Frederick the Great. The famous Pickelhaube helmet was introduced into Chile in 1900 in the General Bernardo O'Higgins Military Academy and was still emblazoned with the Imperial German eagle. Germany and Austria then began manufacturing Pickelhaubes uniquely for Chile, the shape and model being similar to those of the Kaiser Army pattern 1891 and 1895 and used by the Prussian Garda regiments back in Germany. The army itself discontinued the use of the Pickelhaube in 1924 and reserved them only for the military academy and ceremonial occasions, with white hairbrush for officer and cadets and red-orange ones for the parade band. In today's parades, the colonel director of the military academy and his staff are also dressed in German Guards Dragoon Regiment uniforms, with their Pickelhaubes carrying the national coat of arms of Chile. The academy cadets are dressed in the uniform of the 10th Grenadier Regiment King Friedrich Wilhelm II, with the rifle used being the Mauser Modello 1895. The Pickelhaubes used today used to be made in Austria all the way up until 2006, when the company ceased production. Chile then began to buy in Eastern Europe to fill the needs of the army, but now all parts and brass pieces are locally produced. The Stahlhelm, meaning steel helmet, first introduced in Germany during World War I as far more practical to protect against bullets and shrapnel, is now used in Chile by the non-commissioned officers' school. It is a modified version of the 1935 model used by the Nazis, with their uniforms also directly modelled on the World War II era Wehrmacht. It is also, of course, closely associated with the military dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, who ruled Chile from 1973 to 1990, and there was some debate after democracy returned to the country about the Stahlhelm's association with Nazism, but this debate eventually faded and the M35 remains in ceremonial use. Members of the 1st Artillery Regiment wear the Pickelhaube as well, but instead theirs are adorned with a cannonball on top rather than a spike to display their particular branch of service, and they pull behind them a battery of Krupp artillery guns originating from Prussia and also used by dozens of countries in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it being one of the first guns to use steel in its production, and the steel was actually of such a high quality that the British Royal Navy commissioned the steel to be imported so that they could create their guns using some of that steel. There are some amazing videos online showing off these Chilean versions of the Prussian military parades, and in the words of Mark Felton, if you want to see the military traditions, uniforms and music of Imperial Germany in the modern day, don't go to Berlin, instead visit Santiago in Chile on the 19th of September every year. This is known as the Great Military Parade of Chile and has been a tradition for over 100 years, celebrated during the Independence Day set of holidays in Chile and honouring the glories of the Chilean army, and also in honour of the anniversary of the formal inauguration on that day in 1810 of the first government junta, which witnessed the first military parade of the independent nation at the Plaza de Armas in Santiago. It is the final act of the national independence celebrations, which are broadcast across the country and definitely worth a watch. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, become a channel member for exclusive perks if you want to, or you can buy me a coffee using the link below if you would like to in the description, and as always I will see you in the next one.